Happy Thursday. So I have a funny story. Not only did I forget yesterday was Wednesday and I forgot to do coffee with Kelly yesterday, I almost completely forgot today because I've spent all of today thinking today is Tuesday. So imagine my elation when I realized tomorrow is Friday. Woo! But I completely forgot that yesterday was Wednesday and forgot to do coffee with Kelly yesterday and almost forgot to do it today before I left. So happy Thursday. It is April 26th, and I'm going to do a quick coffee with Kelly today on the new equal pay legislation that's being proposed at the Colorado State Congress. So a couple major components. A lot of people might say we already have the Equal Pay Act, we have the Lilly Ledbetter Act, we have Title VII, which is discrimination claims on the basis of pay indicating discrimination on the basis of gender. So why do we need the additional equal pay legislation? So the one component that I think is really important about the legislation that's being proposed and has passed out of the House Finance Committee is that it would prohibit employers from asking about salary history. So what happens a lot to women that results in unequal pay for equal work is that the employer will consider their prior compensation history in determining what is appropriate compensation for them, rather than looking at how other people with similar experience in the position are compensated for the same work. So what happens is a woman is less compensated throughout the history of her employment, especially if this salary history is a component in calculating her pay all the way through her term of employment. Let's say during college she works a part-time job as a nanny and is really compensated at a low level, and then goes into her first job and they ask her for her prior employment. And this actually came up with one of my clients. She was working as a recent graduate with a master's degree. She completed her PhD, but had not yet defended her thesis when she started working at the job, but they did not bump her pay up once she defended her thesis and was granted her PhD. And they based it on her compensation when she had only had a master's degree, because that was her previous compensation level. That's obviously not going to adequately compensate someone with a PhD. So that's one of the components of the new bill. The other component will help to try and strip away prohibitions in the workplace that prohibit people from talking about how they're paid. So a lot of women will come to me and say, I'm sure I'm not being paid as much as the male counterpart doing my same job, but we are discouraged and it's unpopular and kind of unpleasant to ask people how much they're paid. This law that's being proposed would help strip away some of those prohibitions and prohibit employers from having a chilling effect on those conversations, so that people can be talking about how much they're compensated, that there's a little bit more transparency about those compensation levels, so that it's more apparent if people are not being adequately compensated for the same work. So I am excited to see the progress that the Equal Pay Bill is having in the Colorado State Congress. I'm excited to see it pass out of Senate committee and hopefully get on the books before the end of the legislative session, which is coming up very quickly in May. So if you work somewhere where you feel like you are not being compensated for the same work that is done by a male counterpart or a female counterpart for that matter, the Equal Pay Act under the federal legislation does not require that you be female to qualify. It requires that there's equal pay for equal work. So give my office a call. I see one or two of these cases every year where people have pretty solid evidence, and it usually comes from former coworkers, either a former boss, a former coworker who was in the same position, who leaves and then says, I don't know if you knew this, but I was paid X, and you being a woman know you're being paid differently than that. So give me a call. I'd love to talk to you. I think these cases are absolutely fascinating. They are very hard to get the evidence that you need unless you have that friendly coworker. But I think that's part of what makes them so interesting, is that I think there are actually a lot more of those cases out there, but people don't have the information they need to try and pursue them. Have a great weekend, since we can see it from here, and I will look forward to seeing you next week on Coffee with Kelly. Thanks.